Hello and welcome to Spectator TV Australia. I'm your host, online editor Alexandra Marshall, and today I have someone that all of our Specky readers are familiar with and her battle with the eSafety Commissioner. That is, of course, Celine Baumgarten, also known as Celine Against the Machine, as I'm sure you all follow her. Celine, welcome to Spectator TV Australia.
Hi, Alexandra. Thank you so much for having me.
Look, we're going to get into some interesting questions in just a minute, but for those of our readers who perhaps haven't caught up with your latest developments, you've had a major win against the eSafety Commissioner, which will make everyone really happy. Just quickly tell us what happened.
Sure. So it's now Celine 2, eSafety 0. And this whole thing started because of a 53-second video that I posted on Twitter back in May 2024. It was geo-blocked by Julian Grant. I challenged that decision in the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, where I was represented by the Free Speech Union of Australia. We won pretty decisively, yet Julian Grant didn't seem to like that decision very much. She couldn't take the L, as they say, so she appealed that decision in the federal court. So that's what the latest round of litigation was. And on Wednesday, the 18th of February, my daughter's first birthday, we got the verdict and the appeal was completely dismissed, which means we win again.
Well, it's certainly a process going through it. If you've managed to have an entire human being created and born in the process of your eSafety Commissioner battle. But look, this is something that is quite bizarre because on paper, the eSafety Commission, which is set up in order to presumably keep Australians safe online, should be on the same kind of level as what you do, which is using the internet to point out things that endanger Australians in the real world. And yet somehow you've ended up on opposing sides of this political divide. Is that strange? Like, how do you think that happens where two people who are supposedly protecting Australians are literally fighting each other in a court?
I think ideology plays a part, maybe some dollar signs as well, lobby groups and whatnot. I vehemently oppose gender ideology, especially being taught in schools. So make of that what you will. I think that's what it ultimately boils down to, just two complete opposite sides of the political spectrum.
Yes, well, politics and censorship seems to go hand in hand. I know this was a complaint during COVID where people who fell against the government narrative found themselves being censored by our own government department writing to X. And then the same thing happened in climate change, where if you disagreed with the narrative, you were censored. Have you had trouble ever since you started this, and I'm not going to call it activism because yours is sort of a soft activism. You're not picketing people's events. You're not throwing paint on paintings or annoying the working class. Has this started in censorship against you when you started activism, highlighting various parts of the trans community?
Yeah, this situation is a one of its kind. Hasn't happened to me before. Whether it happens to me again, we'll see. I guess you could say I was only really online maybe just under a year prior to all this going on. Like, I wasn't really a big account at all. I was just, at the time, just a pregnant woman that had something to say. So in an odd way, I'll have to thank Julian Grant for projecting me into the limelight, because I've got a few more opinions.
She made you a celebrity Australian freedom fighter.
I know. I'm quite honoured to have the title bestowed upon me, so I'll try and do everyone proud.
But does it, now that you've had these two run-ins with the eSafety Commissioner, has it changed how you approach your activism online? Do you think about these court cases and what happens to you when you go to make a tweet, when you want to highlight something in the real world? Are you sitting there thinking, oh, this could be another 9 months of court cases?
Definitely. And since all that hate speech legislation was rammed through our parliament, it certainly does have me thinking twice. I do understand a lot of people self-censor, and rightly so, especially, mums, families, got to worry about your kids, and you see what's happening in the UK. It won't stop me making videos to begin with, but I do question the language that I use, just because some people are so litigation heavy. And if you've got a target on your back, then that's definitely something that'll draw attention to yourself. But it's not going to deter me entirely. But it's certainly opened my eyes to the process of what so many people have gone through just to give their 2 cents online.
Well, if 10 people break into a shop and steal, all 10 people will be arrested and charged with the same crime. But online, you might have 1,000 people say exactly what you say, or far worse than what you say, and yet nothing will happen to any of them. And yet you can find yourself the sole target of a giant government funded censorship campaign. Does it feel like sometimes the censorship machine of Australia, set up by the Liberal Party, we might add, is disproportionate, two tiered, and disproportionately impacting the various voices of Australians?
Yes, yes, and yes. I think that the censorship machine and the eSafety office itself is a weapon, and depending on what side of the aisle you sit, is whether it will be directed at you or not. Because we see all the time from people who might be on the left wing, they say all these, death to Australia, kill white people, let's, let the colony fall, along those lines. Nothing ever happens to them. Nothing ever happens to them. But you get someone maybe on the right side that expresses, hey, maybe I don't want my 8-year-old learning about sexuality. Boom, target on your back. So it's pretty obvious at this point that it is two-tiered.
Well, it's the LGBTQ plus. I think there's like 5 more letters attached now that I can't remember the order of. It's saturating society. I just walked down the street. Maya has a trans flag as its logo. There is a giant trans flag sitting above the Sydney from a building. I don't know which one it is. You go past the sports stadium, they're hanging above the kids trying to play basketball. It is in every street, on every building, in every company. And you're saying maybe it shouldn't be in schools. Maybe we shouldn't be directing this at school kids. How has being a mother changed your approach to activism about gender ideology in schools? Because I know that, for example, homeschooling's on the rise.
Yeah, it's definitely given me a second wind, if I'm honest. I will be homeschooling my girl if I can. We'll see where things are in 6-7 years time, but that's my goal, my plan. Yeah, it's definitely made me see things through a different lens now, having a child of my own. Just because if any adult was to talk to my little girl about sexuality or whether she may be a boy trapped in a girl's body, oh my goodness. So I can understand the fire now behind these parents that are saying we don't want our children learning about this. And the great thing is I know a lot of LGB people who are against it too. It really is the TQ plus freak shows that are out there that are pushing this agenda on children, and it's sick.
Well, also, is this because I know a lot of activists will say, oh, it's just your political opposition to a topic being taught in school. Like you might object to, I don't know, let's say you hate geology and geology is being taught in school. You just don't like it, right? But is there a genuine fear of actual harm being done to your child's mental state having this political ideology, and it's an adult ideology, coming into contact with young children? Like, is it a real parental fear? And do you hear about it in the community from other mothers?
Yes, I definitely see it as a real legitimate fear. I kind of put it in the same category as the fact that we're doing Welcome to Country at daycare, like the whole teaching children about the evils of white people and colonization. Because, look, if you want to have a conversation about it at university, great, there's a conversation to be had there because they're much older people. When you put these ideas into young children's minds, they're not old enough to process it. So for someone like myself, I was a massive tomboy as a kid. Massive tomboy. Short hair, looked like a boy until I was 12. I had a mullet. It was like, love sport, whole thing. I think about if I had grown up today, in this day and age, all it probably would have needed was one groomy teacher to be like, "Are you sure you're not a boy?" And then once you plant that seed in a child's mind, because no kid comes up with it on their own, it's always introduced to them by either a parent or a quote unquote trusted adult, and then that leads to social transition, which is, oh, it's just a name, it's just pronouns, it's harmless. But 9 times out of 10, those kids do go on to medicalization. And the next thing you know, we're giving mastectomies to 13-year-olds and putting 9-year-olds on puberty blockers, which is happening in this country. And I wish people would wake up to it. It's not just happening in the States. It's rife in Australia. If anything, it's worse.
Well, this is not like the women's equality right conversation that we had decades ago, where there was a movement to equalize rights between the sexes. This is a new political ideology, and it's far from settled. I mean, we're watching the UK overturn legislation that was previously in the courts, say actually biological rights are a thing. We know America's investigating doctors who are transitioning children. So Australia is in the middle of an active political conversation where we have not decided as a society which way we want to fall. And it seems to me and others that the eSafety Commissioner is interfering with a conversation that the public needs to have. What would you say to that observation?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, we look at what happened with Billboard Chris. Billboard Chris just pointed out Teddy Cook's biological sex, which is a woman, and eSafety Commissioner Julie Grant went square after him. She seems to always pop up when it's around these kind of topics, hence why I said before it's very, quite obviously two-tier. But you're right, the eSafety Commissioner is interfering in the political discussions that we need to be having as a country, because if we keep turning a blind eye to these ideologies, eventually they are going to take over. And Australians are pretty apathetic by nature. You know, she'll be right, we'll be right. If we're not careful, we're going to she'll be right our way into oblivion.
Yes, well, look, what would you say to a lot of our readers come from an era when social media was only ever viewed as a sewer? That's not my experience. I grew up online, but there is a view that social media is irrelevant. We need to go back to mainstream media. Who cares about the online discussion or the safety commissioner? How important is the online discussion to people like you who want to raise alarm? I mean, would you be able to do the same activism if you had to bargain with news heads to get your story out, or is social media actually playing a crucial role?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the internet. I don't remember if it was Elon Musk or not. I think it might have been. He called Twitter or the online sphere the new town square, which it is. The downside is any old Joe Blow can have a voice, but the upside is any old Joe Blow can have a voice. So, you know, as you just said, trying to get through to some media, I couldn't imagine I would land a job at the ABC anytime soon. And then we look at what happened, I guess, during COVID, where people's only source of information was online and all the censorship that happened there. And sometimes all it takes for someone is to see someone else speaking up about an issue, and that's enough to spark a conversation within the community. So the online sphere is very, very important. I myself used to avoid social media like the plague. I hated it. I never really had an online presence at all. But it wasn't until, you know, I kind of quote unquote peaked when it came to the trans issue and I realized, whoa, okay, this is a serious problem. I didn't really have many people in my own circle to talk about. So I thought I'll put my voice online, see what happens there. And yeah, 2 years later, here we are. So online is definitely very important.
Well, to be fair, I don't think the news heads of the major publications would even be interviewing you and calling you for content if it wasn't for this debate happening about online
Exactly.
freedom of speech. Now, just a couple more questions. I know you're very busy with your little one, your little precious creature, who's grown up inside of this massive thing.
Oh, it's crazy.
We know that the Liberals created the monstrous eSafety Commissioner office. We know they're not sorry for it because they praised that creation just the other day. And we know that the Labor Party has possibly made the situation worse with new aggressive speech laws, and we'll see how that turns out. Have you seen or heard any indication that your latest victory, and because you didn't just win against the Safety Commission, you also proved a couple of points about the technicalities of these online takedown orders. Is this changing at least the conservative narrative about what can and can't and should and shouldn't be censored online?
Well, yeah, you're 100% right with the fact. I feel like a lot of people think maybe the case was just about whether the post should be up or not. That was round one, pretty much, essentially, at the Administrative Appeals Tribunal. Round two at the federal court was more about putting a microscope on eSafety's processes, which is still baffling to me that Julie even challenged the first decision, knowing that surely this was going to happen. But anyway, the federal court ruled with the tribunal that their entire process is unlawful. Their informal notice scheme, the forms that they send to social media companies that get content censored are illegal. So this should be even though I'm grateful for the media coverage that I've gotten, this should be a much bigger story. And the fact that I've seen, me personally, I haven't really seen any politicians calling for her to either be sacked or the entire office be abolished. Hopefully we'll get there because it really needs some review. And at the bare minimum, she needs to be sacked.
Well, let's not forget, it's not just you who fell victim to this. A lot of, I don't know if it was her department specifically, but I know an Australian department did write to the predecessor of Elon Musk and have hundreds of posts about COVID injuries taken down, which is silencing victims of a government mandate, which is crazy if you think about it for more than 5 seconds. But and we also had news items of the stabbing. taken down as well, even though that is a live news item that people should be able to report on. So can you just expand upon what you said about the takedowns? What does that mean? Does that mean that they can no longer send these notifications, or is that now in doubt?
The entire scheme is pretty much dead in the water. So how eSAFETY works is, say you upload a video to X, video of anything, right? Someone can make a complaint to eSAFETY. They put that complaint in, and then eSAFETY's job is to review the complaint, review the content, and decide whether or not it needs to be censored. Oh my God, sorry, hard to explain. The Online Safety Act, Section 88 of the Online Safety Act, states that a ordinary reasonable Australian needs to find the content as either cyberbullying, and then I think there's another one for like extreme content. Pretty much they have to adhere to this legislation, right? And what eSAFETY do, and what they did in my case, they got the complaint from the teacher of the video. They knew that it didn't meet this criteria, but they still sent an informal notice to X anyway. And these informal notices are takedown notices, but they're dressed up as informal notices. That's the easiest way to put it. And they're often sent through legal portals, like with Twitter, X, it was sent through their legal portal. So to a social media company, it looks very intimidating. It looks very, oh my goodness, this content is against the law, we must get rid of it. So that's what they've been doing. And God knows how many other people they've done it to, because if it wasn't for X notifying me, emailing me through their legal department, I would have had no idea. Meta also deleted the post. I never received any correspondence from them, and it's still not back up on Meta. So what my case discovered, and what the federal court made very, very clear, was that process itself is unlawful.
Wow.
So
it sounds like those pop-ups you get from your virus software that says you have malware, but actually it's a sales pitch saying, actually, we would like you to subscribe for the next 6 months, or you will get malware. It sounds like those aren't really what they set out to be. But, you know, if you were successful in this, Celine, you would have done everyone a great service, because the censorship of political conversation is not talked about in the halls of Parliament. It is not a topic of discussion except for the fleeting news headlines, because the media, for the most part, is quite happy for social media to be silent. But people like you are essential to the safety of our children going forward. One final thing, what's next for you? Are you going to become a political figure, or just settle down for a while and try not to end up back in court?
Yeah, definitely the latter for that one. I'm okay with being a mum at the moment. I've got my beautiful little girl, and she is my world. When she's a bit older, who knows? I have seen a lot of comments telling me to, enter the political sphere. I'm open to it. I've always been interested in politics. I would like to throw my hat in the ring one day, but baby girl's the number one focus at the moment. I don't want to do anything that's taken me away from her, and I certainly don't want to end up back in a courtroom anytime soon. So I'm happy to chill, make my videos, and we'll see where life takes me now.
Well, look, all of our spectator readers and subscribers are huge fans of yours. I know, because they write to me and say so. Thank you so much for giving your time this afternoon to have a chat to us, and we wish you all the very best.
Thank you so very much.